Hey everyone. Today I wanted to go over a couple of things. The first being a update to the tools that I had been working on before, the editor tools for the Cinti pack, and also that simple icon creator. As if you've watched the previous videos, you know that I was waiting on getting them published to the asset store. Unfortunately, it's been about a month now. It's actually been a little bit over a month now, and they've been denied multiple times. I've tried contacting support, trying to fix it so they can get published, but Unity just doesn't respond to me and they don't help me in any way get them published. So at this point, I just stopped trying. Instead, what I'm going to be doing by the end of today is uploading them to my GitHub account. My GitHub account is just github.com/battledrake. They're not there right now, but they will be later today. So keep an eye on that. Both tools will be made available to you for free, and you can download them, use them as you see fit, and then let me know how it goes. There'll be an email for support if you want any. I'll try to get to it as soon as possible. And yeah, that includes that update. The other thing I wanted to go over today is this tool. Well, it's not a tool, it's a library that I made just for fun. What I was trying to solve, so Unreal has a tool in it, a class, a timer handler class. This class lets you set things like cooldowns and timers using a simple way to do it instead of, creating float values and putting them in your update and waiting for the timer to expire. You just use the class and it all handles it for you. And I kind of wanted something like that in Unity. Unity has some other solutions like coroutines and invokes, but they didn't quite fit the bill for what I was looking to do, so I made this instead, and I just wanted to show it. And that this will also be put on my GitHub later today as well, probably by the time, well, the updated version will be up there by the time this video is published. How this class works, I think it's really simple. What you would do is you would have an object in your scene, a world timer manager, and this would just have the one script on it, which is a static singleton. And this is what you're going to call to set your timers. And you would just have it in your scene. If you wanted it to persist between scenes, you'd put it do not destroy unload. I didn't by default, but it's something really easy to add. And then you would just call upon it whenever you wanted to set a timer. So right here we have a sphere, and let's say we wanted this sphere to change color every second or every X amount of time. You would put a script on there. And how it would normally work is you'd have a float value that would be the interval time. You would also then have another float value that would be your timer. So we'll just call it active timer. And what you would do is in your update method, you would subtract from that, or you would add. Some people add or subtract. And the idea is that to reach a value that's equal to the change color time, or after that amount of time, it equals 0, for example. That's how I normally do it. So what I would do is active timer minus equals time.delta time. And then once that active timer is less than or equal to 0 is when we'd want to call the method we want to do, in this case change color, which will just set a random color with the float values between 0 and 1. And then after it does that, we'd want the timer to reset to the color time. So we just make it equal that. So it would just basically be you'd have active timer, which would start out at 0, so it'll immediately call change color. The moment it gets called, the active timer, which is 0 or less, will then change to 1 second. And then so the 1 will be subtracted from the time.delta time, which is after a second will have been called about 60 times. So it'll subtract basically 1 second every second, approximately. So once we have all that set, everything works. It's not really all that complicated to do a normal timer, so this tool isn't really revolutionizing anything. It's just something I built to be really easy, and it's not. Oh, I forgot to save it. So here we have the sphere, and then now it'll be after every second it'll change color. Something really simple, not complicated, but I wanted to show what my tool would allow you to do. So some things the normal way doesn't provide is, let's say you want the timer to stop, right? Well, if you wanted that, then you'd have to do something like create another variable, bool, and we'll say is changing, and then you'd have to have some function call this bool, and then in your update method you'd have to have a check, say if it is changing, then we want all this code to run. It's not that big of a deal, but as you have more and more timers, the logic gets more and more and it just starts to clutter up your update. And yeah, you can switch everything to methods and stuff, which will clean it up, but then you have a bunch of methods with these timers in it, and it just gets kind of messy. The other solution is do coroutines. Those work. The problem with coroutines is, if you want them to repeat or something, that gets a little complicated when it comes to the logic. They're usually good for one shot and then done. The other solution is invokes, if you've ever seen those before. So what you could do is in a start method, you could call an invoke, and what that'll do is you put in the string of the method, and then that will call the method on start. The problem with that, and then you have to put how long before it calls it, which, let's say we want it right when the beginning. Couple of problems. The first with invoke is it doesn't keep going, it just calls it once, which you might need, so it's a great tool if you just need it once. The second is you're using strings to call the method. That can be problematic just because you're using strings, and if you accidentally spell it wrong like this, then all of a sudden you have something that's not working, and you might not know why if you miss the typo. So I prefer to use, it actually has that now. I don't recall it ever doing that before, so that's nice. So it does let you know if you put the wrong string in there. If you want it to keep going though, they do have a solution for that, and that's invoke repeating, which you might have used before. What that'll do is that'll keep calling the method. What you would do is, in this case, it has 3 parameters, so it would be the method you want to call, how long until it calls it, so if you want a delay before it calls it, and then the rate at which it calls it. In this case, we'll just use our change color time, which is great. So when the method starts, or when the object starts, it will begin changing the color every second. The flaws of this are, well, you're using a string, first of all, and I'm not a big fan of that for a lot of things. Second is you can't control that. You can't stop it, you can't pause it, you just kind of start it, and then it just keeps going. So that could lead to some problems in your design later on. So this tool would cover those bases. And how the tool would work is we'd get rid of the invoke. We wouldn't need to use update. What we do is create a new variable of the class, and that's the timer handle class, and we'll call it the color handler. This variable, this class is actually a really simple class. It's used for a key in a dictionary is all this class is really used for. It's got a simple property in it, and that's all it's used for. So it's nothing fancy to it. You just create a new one. You do have to invoke the constructor when creating a new one because they don't come from mono behavior, so you have to create a new one every time you use it. You can create it up here, it's fine. You can do a new timer handle up here. You can do it in your start method or right before you call the handle, it's fine. But you do need to use the constructor creation for this class because it's not a mono behavior. So once you created this handle, all you would do is, in wherever you would start changing it, in this case the start, you would access that static that we had. So world timer manager. And from that, you would access the instance, and then there's a method to start a timer, set a timer. What that takes, as you see here, is it'll take a handle, an action, a rate, and then 2 other parameters that you can or cannot enter in. It's up to you. So the first one is the handle, which is basically just the key for your timer. So that would be color handler. The second is an action or method that you want to call when the time's done. You can use a lambda expression if you like. So if you want after every X amount of time it to do something, but you don't want to create a method for it, lambda works just fine. Otherwise, you just put in the name of the method. Then you would put in the time before it calls it, which is the change color time. And then you have the choice, do you want it to keep looping? You could hit yes. In this case we do. We want it to keep changing color. Do you want there to be a delay between the first calling? So like let's say you wanted some event to happen and then 10 seconds later everything starts changing color every second. That's when you would do the delay. In this case we don't. We just want it to start immediately. So after a second it'll change the color, then it'll run again and again because it's looping. And then that's all we did. We just did one little line of code there. And as you see here, the object will act just as the other one did without all that extra mess in the update. But as I was saying, there's other functionality that, because invoke and coroutines could also do something similar. But let's say we wanted to stop it, right? Well, that has an option to do that too. Let's say we'll do this in this case on a key down. We want to stop our timer from going. So you would just call when we press space, you want to call the timer manager, get the instance, do stop timer, and then all you have to do is just put in the key, the handler. And we do that. And then if we go into here, hit play again, we'll let it change a few colors. So there's 1, 2, and then I hit space, and it stopped. It's no longer running that. Other functionality, you can always start it back up right after that. You don't have to create a new one. Again, you've got the key set. You can start and stop it whenever you like. You can also pause it if you want to. That's an option that's available in case you need a timer to hold off for a second. There's an option to pause it, and then you just, once again, all it takes is just that handler, the key, and then we'll give it the option to unpause it. We'll use key up, so when we let go of the space key, it'll unpause it for us. Unpause timer, and we'll put in that key again. And then, so what we'll have here is it'll begin changing colors. And then I'll let you know it's changing colors, working normally. I'm holding space right now. It's not changing colors. I let go of space, changing colors. I hold space, not changing, let go. And it goes right back to changing. So that's basically the tool, or the little library that I have built. It's not really overly complicated. And like I said, it's not really revolutionary because you're not doing something that Unity really needed. It's just something I thought would be really cool. You know, it's just, you would import this file. There's 3 scripts in it. It's just basically you have your timer handle script, you have your world timer manager, and then there's a third script, which is this one, which is just some data that's used for keeping track inside that dictionary with some enums that are related to the timer manager and don't have anything that you have to configure. That's the tool. There's also something else I wanted to show with it, just to show some other functionality in case you were interested in seeing what other things, how easy it is to use and other things you can do with it. An idea I had was to create like a shooting thing. So we'll hide the sphere for right now. What we'll do is we'll create an enemy or a shooter, so the thing that's going to be shooting. So let's say it's our enemy or whatnot, and we'll go ahead and position that somewhere close to, oops, I should have, there we are. So we have the enemy, and then we'll say that we want it to shoot something across the screen. So we'll go ahead and create a bullet for it to shoot. We'll just use a sphere, get it close for a reference. Here, we'll shrink it down so it's a bit smaller. And then all we want that to do, we'll go ahead and create a script. It's a second while that processes. Drop it on. So all we want the script to do is every time it's fired, we want the bullet to move across the screen. So we don't need much for that. We'll just create a speed for it to travel at. We won't set a default value. And then basically when it spawns, we want it to move. So we'll take its position, we'll add to it its forward vector, and then multiply that by the speed, and then just the time dot delta time. And then what that will do, as I get that to load up, we'll do 5 units a second. Sounds good to me. And there we go. So that's how the bullet will operate every time it's fired. So a simple bullet script, we'll go ahead and save that as a prefab and get that out of the scene. And then we need a shooting. So we'll go ahead and create a script for, just say, shooter component. I can do a couple of things with it. I want to show you 2 things. So we'll go ahead and put that on the enemy. For the player, it can be whatever. So what we want it to shoot after every X amount of seconds, right? And we want it to shoot the bullet. So the first thing we'll do is we will get a reference to our bullet. The next thing we need is a value for how often we can shoot. So we'll do shoot timer. Yeah. And we'll just set that to default for every 1 second it'll shoot. Next thing we need is a timer handle, and we'll do shoot handler. And we'll go ahead and set that to a new one in here. And then all we have to do is in the, not in the start, we'll go ahead and define what happens when we shoot. We'll create a method for that. So the first thing we want is to create a new bullet and set it to what we instantiate, which will be the bullet.game object, because I'm using the script as the reference, just so I can only drag bullets into the inspector instead of just any old game object. And then we're going to use the position that the object's at, and then the quaternion dot not whatever that is. Quaternion dot identity. And then this is just so, you know, let's destroy it after 5 seconds or something. You can even use my timer handler to create your own destroy thing, but I would just use Unity's. I don't know how their destroy works under the hood, but it's probably better to use their destroy instead of your own custom handler to destroy it after 5 seconds. So with that, then we just need to have it call every 1 second. So we'll access the world timer manager. We will access the instance and then set timer. We want the handle, which is the shoot handler we created up there. We want the method to call, which is shoot. And then we want the timer rate, which is the shoot timer. We do want it repeating automatically, and we do not want a delay before it shoots. So that's all we set up already, and gotta tab back into Unity for it. Hit play, and then what it should do is probably give an error because I forgot, null reference. I forgot to give it the prefab. Just a second. There we go. And now what it should do is every second it should fire a bullet, just like that. So you could have your enemies on it, and then, if your enemy spots you, for example, it would just start firing automatically on the timer. And then if you lose sight of, if your enemy loses sight of you, for example, you could just call stop timer or pause or unpause, whatever, however you would want that to work. Another example is custom shooting. So instead of it automatically doing the shooting for you, you're shooting it. You want to use it as the delay in your gun. You can do that. You would just look at it from a different perspective. What you would probably do is a delay instead. So just to make it clear what we're doing, we'll change this to shoot delay. So instead of after every second it fires, we'll say there's a delay between firing of 0.1 second. And then what we'll do is we'll have a bool can fire, and we'll want to set that to true. You probably want to set that to true and start, but we'll set it true there. And then in your update, what you would have is a key code to fire. We'll just we'll just use space, good key, and then shoot. But we only want to do that if can fire. So if we're able to fire, then we want to shoot. And then once it fires, we don't want to be able to fire again. We want to save. Then here, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that timer and put another one here. And how this one is going to work is we'll put in the handler. Action is, instead of shooting, we're going to use a lambda expression. What we're going to do is we're going to switch the can fire from false to true. So after 0.1 seconds, this timer will automatically change that bool value for us. So we'll just create a lambda here, can fire equals true, and then we will have the rate, which is the shoot delay, and then we're not going to have it repeating. It's just going to set a new timer after every time, and then we're not going to have a delay either. So put that in there. So that means every time we hold the key, it should fire, and then we'll just check to make sure it works. We'll hit play. Not firing, holding space. There it goes. It shoots every 0.1 seconds. I let it go. It stops shooting. I hit it. It shoots. Let it go. Tapping it, holding it, letting go, and there you go. That's just a few examples of how this little library would work. Just something I think was kind of fun to implement. I plan to use it in my projects going on in the future, and I hope you get some use out of it. And I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, of course, contact me. Write it in the comments, or there's an email. My battledrakestudios@gmail.com is available to you. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. And then to go over, if this will be updated onto my GitHub later today, and then the other tools will be as well. And I hope you enjoy. Thank you.